Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering, they're cheering, and they're jumping.
What is up, Mets fans? Welcome to the first Mets Roundtable podcast of 2024. And just the way we drew it up, the Mets decides in dramatic fashion win a ball game that all of us thought were going to lose and be 0-6. But we got 3/4 of the Mets Roundtable here today. We got Chris, CP, as many of you already know, from CP, Mets, and Knicks. And, of course, if you follow him on X, Hector from Washington Heights, you know him from WFAN, always calling up, screaming at Salicata, screaming at every host you can think of. Say what up to Hector. Hector, welcome. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you, man. I'm doing good. And thank you for letting me be a part of this, man. I'm looking forward to it. I see your stuff. I watch CP. We interact on X. We never actually really spoke like this. So CP, man, it's a pleasure. And like I said, I'm looking forward to be a part of this. Always wanted to do something like this. And thanks for having me, guys. It's gonna be fun, hopefully.
Absolutely. So me and Hector just got back from the doubleheader. We were just talking about our backs and legs and knees are all hurting because we were Hector was pacing in this section back and forth all game. It was great to watch. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Good, man. Like I said, I'm still on travel. Be back home tomorrow. Just want to welcome Hector to the round table. Like I said, obviously we always have our X interactions, but finally good to speak here face to face. And obviously I did a rant of a post game after game one. I was a little bit upset. I had to get my raw emotions, my raw takes out there. So if you're in the chat and you watch that, shout out to you for tuning in. Salute to you. But we got a nice win in game two, and I criticized a lot in game one because the game objectively just definitely was in the Mets' favor at first, and they kind of let us slip away. So I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I'm glad that we're sitting here talking about a salvage day in the first one of the season. Always great to see a Mets win. So great times.
Absolutely. Like I thought we had game one in the bag, and we'll get to the each game, breaking it down in the series as a whole. But game one was in the bag. Me and Hector were talking about it when he came over to the section, and we were like, we thought we had it in the bag. We were ready for the trumpets and Diaz, shutting them down, and then all hell broke loose, and it was just I don't know what the hell. I don't even know what you want to call it. It was just a bad performance. The fans were starting to chirp at the players. People were yelling at Mendoza, and there was not enough people in the ballpark. Everybody heard what you were saying. It was echoing across City Field. And Mendoza was getting killed for letting Beatty bunt. And it was just a whole thing in that game. But, Chris, I want to get your take on game one. Because, I spoke to Hector, and we'll get to Hector in a little bit. But, Chris, when it comes to certain spots, when it comes to Lindor looking terrible at the plate, even Alonso didn't really look great nobody really looked great in besides Alvarez and Beatty in game one. Absolutely. What was Mendoza doing by putting the bunt sign on Brett Beatty right after he made a great defensive play, and you always see that combination where if you make a great defensive play, guess what? That guy's coming up the bat, and he's usually the man to do the job. Why in the world? And I haven't questioned Mendoza's moves until today. Why would he bunt Brett Beatty in that spot? Do you have any reason for it?
No, there's no reason to do that. I will not defend that by any stretch of the imagination. I said in my post game. Shout out to Meech, by the way, over here in the chat, saying what's up to Robin, CP, and Hector. No, there's no reason to bump Beatty in that situation. Obviously, the go ahead, the game winning runs on second base, right? You have Brett Beatty swinging a hot stick, doing well, defensively at third base, just playing above expectation. To be honest with you, with what we've been talking about Brett Beatty all off season. I don't like the bunt at all, period. 0-0, but especially 0-1. You got to pull that bunt sign back, especially 0-1. The one thing that Brett Beatty always does, even when he's not 100% on, right? We talk about the ground ball rate, right? He loves to pull those ground balls. And that would have been okay in that scenario. Like, if Brett Beatty did that, that's all we needed in that scenario to move the runner over. And when I talk about this Mets offense that's been struggling here, it's been about situational hitting. And it's not always been about getting the guy in scoring position. It's been about moving runners over. Alonso hasn't done it. Francisco Lindor hasn't done it. Brett Beatty in that instance didn't do it, but he didn't get a chance to do it because I'm highly positive it wasn't him himself that called those bunts on 0-0 and 0-1. It was Carlos Mendoza, I would have to imagine. So why are we asking Brett Beatty, who Hector, Rob, everybody in the chat, I don't know if you all know the last time that Brett Beatty successfully got a sack bunt down. I can't remember it personally. Why are we asking him to do it when the team's 0-4 and you need a win, and all you need to do is move the runner over to third base? There's no excuse for that. He should not be bunting in that scenario. And obviously, I think that was the turning point in the game, late in the game. I think that as soon as the Mets squandered that opportunity, leading off with that failed bunt attempt, obviously resulting in a strikeout, that's when that game went downhill for the New York Mets. So no, Rob, to answer your question, there's no rhyme or reason for why Brett Beatty should be bunting that scenario. Now, mind you, I am a big proponent for sacrifice bunting. I think it's a lost art in the game. And in general, in the history of me talking baseball, I have been in favor of sacrifice bunts. I know the game's been getting away from that sort of realm. It's been less and less bunts, and especially sacrifice bunts. I will always defend the sack bunt. But in that scenario, I simply can't defend it. And we know why we can't defend it, because the result that we got is what it is. And that's what we have to live with now. So no, not a great call whatsoever.
Yeah, and the Marte bunt, and his camera went out, but we'll get him back in a second. The the Marte bunt made more sense because Marte knows how to bunt. When Beatty has bunted once in the majors and never bunt in the minors in his career in the minors, that's something that Mendoza needs to know, and that can't happen. And again, there's situations where bunting makes sense. Again, the Marte one as well. But Hector, I know you spoke about it. We were screaming about it. I mean, I think Mendoza heard every line you said to him in English and Spanish, by the way. So Hector, why? You know, CP said it. I said it. Is there any logic to it? Do you have any reasoning for Mendoza's stupid reason for giving him the bunt aside?
I'll play, I guess, a little bit of devil's advocate on this, and I might have hinted it to you a little bit at the game.
Yeah, yeah.
And like you said earlier, I'm someone who calls the radio a lot, right? And someone, when they put this rule in that I spoke to a lot about, it was JJ, John Jastrzemski, when he used to host the overnights, and we used to go back and forth between scenario. And I think one scenario where we always agreed where yes, you probably would bunt would be at home where, all you need to do is move that guy over. And of course, you're going to sacrifice fly and the game is over. You win. However, like CP said, like you said, you play the game the way you're supposed to be played. You want to play the game the right way. At the same time, sometimes you got to buy into the narrative. Sometimes you got to buy into what you're seeing in front of you, and you got to buy into the way the game is playing. Brett Beatty's having a hell of a game. He had already driven in the run out, going with the opposite field hit. He had already had a good at bat and drawing a walk. He makes the heck of a play, like you said, to half inning before it. How many times do you see that? A guy makes the play, and his next at bat, he gets either a home run, a big hit, whatever it is. So the whole time I'm thinking, okay, Here's the setup. This is it right here. Brett Beatty's gonna be the hero. And when I saw the bunt put on, and okay, you want to try it the first time, I'll get over it, you know. But to go on and do it a second time, and now you're just taking the bat out of this kid's hands. He's done. Once he failed that second time, he was done, you know. And CP mentioned it. I haven't seen him bunt except for when he tried it in spring training, you know. And like you said, the Marte bunt was good, but somebody told me in the ballpark that, you know, who the heck knows how true this is, that they look, and he's only bunted like one time since he's been in Major League Baseball, including the minor leagues.
Yeah.
So is that a situation where you really want to do that? I'm not so sure. So you know, although I want to play devil's advocate, and maybe 99% of the time the correct baseball move is to go ahead and bunt there and take your two chances or one chance with the sacrifice fly or whatever the case may be. Not in that situation. I'm with you guys. I don't understand it. I can't defend it. I really can't.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like again, I haven't questioned any of Mendoza. I had Mendoza's back on a lot of the moves he made throughout the first couple of games of the season. So I just managers are going to make bad moves, right? Even when you think it's the right move and it fails, people are going to say, "Oh, I would have done something different." It's just the way fans work. It's just the way we react. Managers are not perfect. We know that, but in that moment, it didn't make sense. Even if you would have a 50-50 split sometimes or a 70-30 split when a move is made, like bunting, making Beatty bunt, it just didn't make sense. And, Ottavino, once again, hanging that slider. And CP, Chris, if you saw Hector, what he was doing, he was literally like this in the section, like, what do you do? Oh, it was priceless. I wish I videotaped. I wish I videoed it.
Can you allow me some on this? Because
Go ahead.
I've caught some heat, right? And if you're watching this, we appreciate every single one of you. If you watch my videos, you've heard me talk about Ottavino. You've heard my nickname, playfully, that I have for him, Ottastinkle, right? And I have a buddy of mine, I have friends, my friend Nicole, shout out to her. I don't know if she's watching this. And they say, well, how can you say that? And look at the numbers, and he does this. But this is what I always say. And it's not just him. I feel the same way about Drew Smith. There's certain games that you just can't blow. There's certain situations that you just can't blow. So I don't care if you've done well your last three outings. Today, you could not do that. You just could not do that. And that's what I always expect from Ottavino. And he didn't let me down. So when I see him coming in the game in that situation, I'm like, okay, here we go. Please don't do it. And of course, he does it. So that's where I'm at with him. Of course, I want to see him succeed, and there's going to be times that he's going to come in and succeed. But it's just that there's just those situations where you just can't do it. And unfortunately, more often than not, I feel like him, Drew Smith, and there's a few others where it plays out exactly the way it played out today. And it just drives me crazy.
And it really hurt too, because this would have been Edwin Diaz's first save opportunity of the season. And I know
that's exactly what I said. Give me the trumpets for the first time when it means something, not because we want to get him some work, not because we want to hold the lead. And Ottavino, he didn't want to hear the trumpets. He said, "To hell with your trumpets, Hector. I got something for you." Oh man, sorry, brother. Go ahead, man. Thank you.
No. You're good, man. And it's just frustrating too, because when you look at the replay, he's sitting there like, how could that have happened? Dude, you left the ball middle. How do you think a professional hitter? And Gary Cohen said Riley Green was 1 for his last 17. So maybe that's the Gary Cohen jinx. I don't know.
Don't tell me that.
Nonetheless, when you leave a ball middle to a professional baseball hitter, they're going to put it over the fence. And I don't know about you guys, Hector, Rob, I don't know about you guys, but there's been some discourse, especially using 8 pitchers in that game. In hindsight, it's a loss. Of course, Carlos Mendoza didn't know it was going to be a loss. Hindsight's always 2020. But I get that Jake Diekman didn't really look sharp in the inning previous, but he did end the inning striking out Spencer Torkelson. Honestly, for the sake of just saving another arm, I would have played the gamble of starting Jake Diekman out in the 8th inning, and then maybe I don't get that situation. Now, like I said, hindsight's always 2020, either direction. I get that Adam Ottavino is going to be your 8th inning man. That's why you signed him in the first place. But there really has to be some discourse now. Adam Ottavino, 2 times out, really struggling, gave up 1 run each. Jorge Lopez, by the way, who I'm not sure if we're planning to talk about or not, went on the 10th inning and stranded the ghost runner on second base. Jorge Lopez, if Adam Ottavino doesn't figure it out, Jorge Lopez is going to have to slot in to higher leverage situations because what we're seeing out of Adam Ottavino, I get it's early. I get it's only 2 appearances. That cannot happen. That cannot happen.
Yeah,
I
and
agree. And Rob, I'm sorry,
yeah,
NCP.
guys.
I don't want to see him as the eighth inning guy. When we signed him, I said, no problem. But I'm hoping that he's starting in his sixth, seventh inning. Him and Drew Smith, with Drew Smith, of course, having the higher ceiling and being the younger guy, and you're hoping maybe takes that next step. But he needs to earn that trust too. So no, I'd rather give Jorge Lopez a chance. Even Johan Ramirez when he comes back from suspension and all that. Anybody but Adam Ottavino or Drew Smith in the eighth inning. I'm sorry. I don't care. Like,
Yeah,
it's not time to play, history or whatever. And his history hasn't been great anyways.
yeah, and when we signed Jorge Lopez, we thought right away this guy's they're looking for him to be the setup man, like the bridge to Diaz. Like I think a lot of people believe that, even though he had a tough year last year, but he did have a tremendous amount of saves and looked really good 2 years ago with the Orioles as their closer. So, and I even go back earlier. I didn't like that they took out Hauser when things got a little rough for him. What was it, the fifth inning, if I'm not mistaken? I think it was a little bit of an early hook, taking out Hauser, knowing that you had another game after that, and you still had 4 or 5 innings to go, and it ended up being 6 more innings to go. I didn't like to take out Hauser, a guy who was really pitching well. He was striking out guys. He had him off balance. He was pitching well. To not give him the opportunity as a veteran is the guy. Look, Hauser, they brought him here in a trade to give us innings, to protect the bullpen, and you didn't give him that opportunity, and I don't understand why that was the case. If it was only one game, maybe I would be okay with it, but it made no sense for that either. And not only that, you use everybody in your bullpen. The only person you used was Reed Garrett, and it was amazing to me because you left yourself with the situation with Tonkin once again in extra innings, and you gave yourself no margin for error. And I just didn't understand it. And you know what? Shout out to Drew Smith. Shout out to Rayleigh and Diekman. As much as we're killing a lot of the moves and everything like that, the bullpen has been pretty good for every one of these games. The first 6 games of the year, 6, 7, 6 games of the year. Can't even remember anymore.
6 games.
6 games
Yeah.
of the year. The pitching overall has been pretty decent, where they gave us a chance to win. A lot of it has been these losses are because of the offense. Let's be honest about that. Like we all knew on Monday when we didn't score in the 9th inning, it was over. The way that we looked offensively, we knew it was done. And it seemed like today it looked like we were going to go flying to Cincinnati 0-6. Like if it wasn't for some heroics from Pete Alonso and Tyron Taylor and a little bit of Brett Beatty in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. The game one completely confused me.
Now, let me ask you guys, do you think that was showing some urgency to want to get that first win in game one with some of the moves going to the bullpen early?
I think it was a
trying to bum with Beatty. Or what? Or was it panicking? Was it a little bit of panic?
100% was a panic move. The reason why I say that, because that quick hook from Hauser to go to a bullpen guy, knowing that you're gonna need arms for the next game as well, made no like he had a shorter leash for Hauser than he did for Budo. It made no sense. That's what it was. It seemed like it was a panic move. As soon as there was trouble, right away you're taking Hauser out.
You know what, Rob?
How you trust?
You know what, Rob? That would have worked out. And hindsight's always 20/20. But the offense, we keep going back to the offense. The pitching did their job. Every pitcher on this roster, minus Adam Ottavino, Michael Tonkin, has done their job early this season. Let's not forget about that. The offense, the Mets had a chance not only in the 10th inning, but also the 9th inning to win the game. Brandon Nimmo, leadoff walk. He steals second by some miracle. Brandon Nimmo has finally stolen the base this season. Finally. What does Francisco Lindor do? He strikes out when all you need to do, like Brett Beatty needed to do, move the runner over, didn't get a chance to move the runner over, and Francisco Lindor struck out. And that's when the inning went to crap. Let's be honest with you. So it's situational hitting. Listen, I have listen, I wanted Jake Diekman to go out there a little bit longer. Obviously, I think Tyrone Taylor Adrian Hauser got pulled a little bit early at 67 pitches there in the 5th inning or the 6th inning. But listen, at the end of the day, the offense had multiple opportunities late in the game to win the ball game, and their situational hitting was crap, and they didn't do it. And that's why the Mets were forced to throw 8 pitchers total. Michael Tonkin they had to waste, Jorge Lopez they had to waste, and I forgot who they threw. I believe Jorge Lopez was the 10th inning. So they had to throw 2 extra pitchers at the bare minimum when they could have just won the game in the 9th inning. That's killer. You need to win the game late in the ball game. When Edwin Diaz gets that electric 1, 2, 3 inning in the 9th inning, your offense needs to go out there after a leadoff walk and a stolen base, runner on second, no out. They need to win the game.
Yep.
That's plain and simple.
Absolutely. The offense is leaving this pitching no margin forever right now. If anything, it's putting pressure on the pitching to feel like they have to be perfect. And I mean, we already saw how that played out last year. And it's starting to be almost like the same book. And then the time that you do get a little bit of hitting, then the pitching doesn't come through. Because, we got a little bit of hitting, but then the pitching didn't come through. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, the first game, like there was so many question marks in the first game. Again, it all leads back to the offense because this game should have been a 6-7 run lead for the Mets. The opportunities they had, even late in the game, even when they had the opportunity in the 9th inning, where they even in extra innings, they couldn't move the runner over. They couldn't even do that. Like it was getting to the point where it's like, you know what? Let's not put a runner on second. Let's just go with the flow with no outs in extra innings. Like, let's go old school. I mean, come on. But you know what? It was frustrating, and the loss was terrible, especially when a lot of Met fans thought we had it in the bag. And you know what? Shout out to Met fans at Citi Field. Maybe 2 or 3
the
thousand.
500 of us.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. Like literally, we were loud. Like we were going after it. Like I ain't gonna lie. Like the fans were pumped. They were trying to will this team to a fucking victory. Like,
but you can hear everything, Rob, and we'll touch on it.
Yeah.
But you saw how I figured out, and I talked to you about Francisco Alvarez, and we'll touch on it later if you want. But I'm listening. Like, who's that? Like, trying to implore the hitter, and when I look, it's Alvarez. I can hear him all the way from. And we're pretty close, but to be able to hear him clearly. That tells you everything you need to know about the crowd. And then, of course, at that point where, everybody's feeling like we're about to lose this game, But
and if follow Hector on X. He posted a video. He videoed Alvarez shouting to the hitters like, "Hey, let's go! You got this! You got this!" Like he was literally on the top step doing that with every Mets batter at the plate when he wasn't playing in the second game. So that was great to see. And Hector brought it up. He seems like a leader, even at that young age. So let's get to game 2, because game 2 was another one where we were getting no hit by Manning, who wasn't even supposed to pitch in that game. And he was just mowing down the Mets. Lindor looks clueless. Even Alonso was striking out at bad pitch. Everybody was just not good. Like Beatty had a couple of good at-bats. The umpires were terrible in this game. I mean, it was just, we were on an angle. Obviously, me and Hector were on different sides of the plate, but, at certain points of the game. But the umpiring was terrible. It seemed like a lot of the Mets had issues with the strike zone. Like Lindor was going after it. Beatty was really upset a lot of times. And this is the most passion and expression and just pure emotion from Beatty that I ever seen. These 2 games, he was, even when he walked, he was screaming and pumping his fist like, "Let's go." I mean, that was great to see, and I like that. I think Beatty needs to play with a little bit more of that passion and excitement and emotion, because it seems like it works for him. So going into game 2, I know we were all like looking at the line, the box line, the box scores, and it was like, "Oh man, we don't have a hit here." It's getting, when they score that run, we're like, "Oh no!" Like it was like the fans were starting to get drunker, louder, stupid. like security came to our section. Like it was getting bad. It was really getting bad. Like it was. I know, Hector, you weren't there. You left already. Security told us to calm it down. we were literally cursing and screaming at every person that was just swinging at crap. Like they looked like
At least I was on the other side, still trying to implore them to get it done. Like, come on, let's go, guys. We
Oh
can do this.
man.
Come on.
But Beatty got on, Marte with the bunt. You know, Alonso with the home run. Like that was look. I think we all thought we were going to lose that game. I don't think. I mean, there was an excitement, like a little bit of fire because Pete Alonso was up. Like, can he do this? And he did it. A line drive in left center field, tie game, and I think at that point, Met fans started to believe that we're going to win this game regardless. Like it just felt like it. And we thought it would be one guy or another, but it ended up being Tyrone Taylor hitting that ball down the left field line. Mets win. Everybody going nuts. I was hugging guys I didn't even know. We were just jumping up and down. Like it was just pure mayhem for our first win of the season. Look, it meant more to the Mets fan than the Mets players, even though you could see the sigh of relief from the Mets players on the field when they were going after Tyrone Taylor. Like you felt it. So, Chris, I'm going to start with you. With the second game, as it was going on, inning after inning, no hit after no hit, looking lifeless, bullpen pitching, doing their job, keeping their minute. Because let's shout out to the bullpen once again, because they kept them to one run. And it could have easily been 2, 3, 4 runs, and we wouldn't have been talking about a Mets win in the second game of the doubleheader. How are you feeling inning by inning, pitch after pitch? Even if you weren't watching the whole game, you're looking at your phone, up another zero on that and another zero. How are you feeling inning by inning?
Yeah. First of all, I'm on travel, so I was out for the first couple innings, and I just kept looking down at my phone, and I was like zero after zero after zero, and I was like, all right, let me go back to what I'm doing right now because these guys are obviously not going to salvage the day. They salvaged the day, obviously in the grand way. I want to give out 3 shout outs, by the way, 3 shout outs on the day. First of all, this is kind of a peculiar shout out, but shout out to Angel Hernandez because he actually didn't have a bad game behind the plate. I'm not going to lie to you. I was watching on TV. He did not have a bad game whatsoever calling strikes and balls at the plate. And Ron, I forgot, he was one of GKR, actually gave him a shout out as well. And I was very surprised. I was like, this is Angel Hernandez? Like, it was the 4th inning, and they said, this is Angel Hernandez. I was like, this is Angel Hernandez? He's actually been doing pretty good. So, first of all, I see Joel in the chat going after Angel Hernandez. He had a better day at the plate calling balls and strikes
I
than
was
you think,
going
I
after
promise
him at
you.
the stadium, CP.
We all
I'm
were.
glad
We
you said
all
that
were.
because for us it looked bad. But if you're gonna tell me he did
with the
good,
K with the K zone, I'm curious to see what the MLB scorecard looked like because the K zone, all those close strikes all those close balls that look like strikes, they were just a hair out of the strike zone. Now, obviously, he missed an occasional 1 or 2, but he did a pretty solid job. I promise you that. That's the first shout out. Second shout out, obviously the bullpen, Reed Garrett especially coming in, doing what he does. Shout out the bullpen. Third shout out. Don't ever say Pete Alonso is not a clutch hitter. Don't ever say that he hits garbage time home runs. Don't ever say that. And if you say that, you can kick rocks. I can promise you, and I'm going to say that right now. It's not many times I get fiery, but after a season at the start of a season like this, 0-5, you need a win. You're going into the last inning, right? The later part of the ball game with no runs on the board. And the guy that's in the contract type year that we all know the Mets and Pete Alonso and Scott Boras are going to negotiate on a contract, he comes up to the plate, having struggled in that game. You need something big out of him. Don't ever say that Pete Alonso hits garbage time home runs because he came through for the Mets in a big way. And if it wasn't for him, the Mets probably, and I say probably because they still had a chance, but they probably lose that ball game. So shout out to Pete Alonso. This is a great win. This is a great win. This is a great win, and it turned my mood around. They absolutely salvaged the day. That's all I got to say.
I think it saved the season, to be honest with you, because they're going to Cincinnati. I know the weather's going to be crap, but the Mets usually do a lot of damage in Cincinnati offensively, including Alonso. But I want to be the devil's advocate, CP, because Hector, I saw your reaction when Chris talked about Pete Alonso right now. What were we talking about the middle of that game about Pete Alonso about talking about trades and everybody might be tradable. Like honestly, Chris, we were literally just going about like, wow, like it was literally getting to the point like me and Hector were talking. We were talking like, look, we know we want Pete Alonso here. We all do. The last thing we want is to put us in a situation where the Mets might have to trade Pete Alonso. Let's hope that does not happen. Let's hope this win turns our season around. But I'm not going to say being a devil's advocate because, like, you can look at the numbers and see what Pete Alonso has done.
He's off to a hot start, Rob. He's off to a hot
He's
start.
doing great. He's doing. You know what I think it is, Rob, and to CP's point, because the truth is that Pete has come through many a times in the clutch,
Absolutely.
late in games, right?
But like
We just want to see him do it a little bit more, maybe throughout the game, because he's done it late in games. Maybe in the middle of the game where you could get a hit here, a hit there, where we don't have to be put in this situation when you got to walk it off in the bottom of the ninth, or you got to tie it in the bottom of the ninth. Then I think that's maybe what it is. We want to see a little bit more consistency, a little bit less of fishing for that slider in the dirt, which is what set us off a little bit when we saw that previous at bat. So I think that's what it is that consistency that we want for Peter Alonso. Because yes, CP is right. He has been clutch many times before, and he will continue to be clutch. We just want him to be a little bit more consistent. That's all it is.
So the only thing was like Pete Alonso's hitting for, he's getting a lot of hits, hitting the ball the other way. He's hitting for good average right now. What I was telling Hector, and we kind of agree, but we were kind of going back and forth on this. But like with Pete Alonso, I don't need him to be a 300 hitter, right? It would be nice, right? I know he's not a 300 hitter. If he can be 260, 250 to 270, I'm fine with your 45 home runs, 120 RBIs. I'm good with. The problem was in situations where we needed him to drive the ball, it seemed like he was trying to hit the ball the opposite field. He was trying to pepper the ball. We didn't see him try to drive the ball and take that pitch and drive the ball like he did in the ninth inning of that second game. That was a pitch that Pete flails at, strikes out on. That was a pitch that he uses pure strength and arms to take that outside pitch and drive it to left center, line drive over the fence. And that's the Pete Alonso I want. Like, I don't want Pete Alonso batting 210. But I think that average, and I told you, Hector, this, I think the average of him having a bad average last year was starting to get into his head way too much. And he's trying to do way too much average-wise and not doing the one thing that we know he's damn good at, and that is driving in runs and providing that power that, let's be honest, guys, this team needs, because we're getting people on base a lot. We're stranded too many runners, and when Pete Alonso's up, again, the situation where you want to just get that base hit, but when you're down a run or two and you need that big hit, I want to see that ball driven into the gap or over the wall. That's my concern that I saw with Pete Alonso, which I think he's starting to turn around now and starting to drive that ball, because you've seen his last couple of at-bats in the second game where he was starting to pull that ball, drive that ball, wanted to pull that ball instead of trying to pepper it the right field.
So the first game, he hits a 114 mile per hour single up the middle. He also gets a base hit to the opposite field. Listen, that's going to change. That approach is going to change, like Jeremy's saying in the chat here, when JD Martinez comes in, because he's going to get more pitches to hit. Right now, I think it is, Hector. I know.
No. I shouldn't do that. I
saw you there for a little bit, but no. I really do think that's going to be the case, because you have Francisco Alvarez hitting cleanup game one. You have Brett Beatty hitting cleanup game two. I really do think he's doing a better job hitting the ball where it's pitched. Now, the main complaint, obviously, of this roundtable, of the Mets fan base in general, was that he had 217 on the season. So, obviously, he's fixing that average here to start off. I don't have any doubts that the home runs are going to come. But honestly, especially with this cold weather, Rob, we talk about this. This is an advantage for the pitchers early on in late March, early April with the cold weather. Even Pete Alonso, the best power hitter in the game, there's going to be balls that he smokes that probably stay in the yard because of the weather. I think that this is the best sort of hitting technique, right? Line drive hitting, even if it results in singles, that he could possibly take. Listen, after game one, he was 6 of 18. I'm going to take that all day long. He finally drove the ball out of the ballpark in game 2 for the necessary home run. Listen, if it were up to me, I'm not going to lie to you, there was nothing about the start of the first 6 games from Pete Alonso that I would change. Nothing.
Okay.
No, I agree with you 1,000%. And it's like I was telling you, I'm telling Robin there, it's like I'd rather him start with this approach because I feel like it's easier to adjust back to that power approach than it will be to try to find this. You know what I'm saying? So do this, not a problem. But it's like we were talking about right before we got into this. It's finding that balance. You want him to be able to find that balance and understanding. And I hate that I'm even gonna bring this guy up because he's probably one of the top, the elite, right? But it's like a Juan Soto, and when he goes up to the plate and he understands exactly what the pitcher's trying to do, but he is confident enough in himself that no matter what the pitcher's trying to do, I'm gonna do me. And if you make a mistake, I'm gonna take advantage of it. And even if you don't make a mistake, I'm gonna take your pitch because I know what you're trying to do. And if you're gonna pitch me outside, and I'll take that hit when it's going the opposite way. So I don't have a problem with that. I think what we've seen the first 5 games, and we'll still see, which has been frustrating me, is the whole approach from the whole team and hitting, and where they seem like they're thinking. And instead of just reacting and going up to the plate, understanding what the pitcher wants to do and knowing what your abilities are and how you're going to combat that, they're trying to figure out pitch by pitch. Okay, so the count is 0-1. He's going to throw this X percent of the time, this percent of the time, and you cannot hit like that. So I think overall, that's the case with that. But for Pete, I think it's just finding that balance. But like CP just said, I'm never going to be mad at a guy who's putting the ball in play and having success and hitting for average. Is he going to be a 300 hitter? We all know that he's not going to, but I don't need him to be a 217 hitter. And I know that he's also not a 217 hitter. I think Pete can be 265, 275, somewhere in there. I really believe that. I've always believed that. So I'm happy with what I see from Pete. And we saw it. He gave it to you. I thought about you as soon as he hit that home run, Rob. I promise you. I was on the other side and said, you know
Well,
what?
that's what I
Rob
wanted to
wanted a
see.
home run. Rob wanted
I
a home
said it.
run in a home run situation. Well, that
Yeah.
was it. That was the perfect situation. And
Nobody
like you
was
said
happier
earlier,
than me. Nobody was
he,
happier than me because of the fact that look, I seen what Pete was trying to do. I know it was getting in Pete's head with that average. He talked about it a lot during spring training. You could tell what he was trying. You saw his approach in these first couple of games of the season, what he was trying to do. He's trying to get that approach of, let me take the ball the other way. Let me take that ball up the middle. And you could see he was using that approach and thinking about the average. What I was concerned about, especially, it showed in the first couple of games. Yes, he was 6 for 18. Yes, he's putting the bat on the ball. But we're losing games because we weren't scoring runs. And Pete Alonso was a part of that. Yeah, he was getting on base, but who is driving him in behind him? Nobody. You got the Lindors that is supposed to be your run producer. You got Alonso that's your run producer. I don't need Pete to get on base for who? For who? Marte? Stewart?
Francisco Alvarez.
Okay.
there you go.
Oh
There
yeah.
you go. But we always talk about passing the baton and
Yeah.
trusting each other. So you don't want him, because the team is struggling to score runs, to really come out of himself. Again, you want to understand the situation, and there's a time and a place. And there's a time where you need to do that, and maybe you want to go ahead and try to do that. And maybe in the ninth inning, he said, you know what? This is the time for me to hit a home run, and it worked for him. But more often than not, guys, we see it. Guys will tell you, no, I was not trying to hit a home run. I was trying to go up the middle. I was trying to stay in a big part of the ballpark. You know what I'm saying? And it just so happens that I got the pitch to hit. I got my pitch and I hit it out the ballpark. So we're gonna be all right. I think Pete's gonna be okay if he sticks to this approach. I really do. And especially as the weather gets warmer, he gets on a little hot streak, he starts feeling a little confident, and he'll pick his spots. I really believe that.
I do got to give credit. We killed Mendoza a little bit in this doubleheader. Put an Alvarez cleanup. And CP, I talked about this. I know you said you didn't want to do it, which is understandable. A young kid, you didn't want to put that pressure on him. I felt like he drives in that situation, and he's showing it. Like, he is not afraid of anything. He wants to take on that pressure. And you know what? Keep him there. And you know what we got to do? And somebody brought it up in the chat. I don't know who. Marte's got to get moved up in the lineup. You got to move Lindor out of that spot. Like, put him back to
I got
third.
something to say.
Push people back. I think you need to push people back. Put Marte second again, Lindor third, Alonso fourth, Alvarez fifth. It straightens out the lineup. It makes the lineup longer.
Before
And
you go, CP, let me ask you guys this: when JD comes back, do we want to see Pete stay behind? I mean,
yeah,
Alonso stay behind Pete, or we want to see JD in between there? I kind of want to
This
see Alvarez stay behind Pete. That's it. That's
this is
He's the guy. He's the
facts.
future. Why
yes,
waste
yes,
time?
yes.
Let
Facts.
JD protect him. Let him get comfortable there. Let him learn, and let's keep riding that wave.
Putting
But
JD behind
I don't give a
Alvarez,
damn that we bring. Let him hit
Alonso.
six.
Yep, Alonso, Alvarez, Martinez. You got Alvarez protecting Alonso. You got
And then
Martinez
Bailey
protecting
seven.
Alvarez. That is a dangerous 4-5-6 or 3-4-5, however you want to put it. That's dangerous, CP.
Pete, Hector, we've been on the money, and we and you have been talking the same lineup the whole entire offseason. I absolutely agree with you too. Pete, Alvarez, JD, Marte, McNeil. If McNeil turns it around, if he does, that's a dangerous 4 through 7 right there. And then 8 through 9, you just got to figure it out. I
Well,
like it a lot.
not
I
even
like
see
JD
because
at the 5 spot.
we're talking about bringing Marte up, right? Which is something that I had spoken with a few guys before. Like he's starting to earn that. If he works his way back up and you go Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Pete, Alvarez, JD, Beatty,
You know, Hector,
McNeil, and
I
then
think
whoever the hell 9.
I think we're wasting Marte's at bats in the 5-hole, 6-hole area because he is a guy that gets on base. And we know he has the speed. If he's healthy, he can steal bases. He's useless in that 6-7 spot. I don't 4, 5, 6
But I don't
spot.
have a problem with with them starting him there.
No,
I don't
no,
have a
no.
problem with
I
them
agree
starting him
because
there.
you
For
can't trust him
me,
because of his injuries.
Yeah.
For me, though, McNeil, in order to move Marte up in the lineup, McNeil has to turn it around in order for him to bat behind JD Martinez. If that's not the
Yeah,
case,
you know what
I'm
though?
hitting Beatty behind JD
No, I
right
was
now.
gonna say you can put
I'm hitting
Beatty
facts,
Beatty
and
behind
valid,
JD.
valid,
you can bat McNeil
valid,
8.
valid, valid, valid.
I'm
You can
sorry.
bat McNeil
I
8
like
for all
that.
I care.
Yeah.
You know what?
I
Bring
like
him
Yeah.
up
that. I like
there.
that.
Let McNeil
I
sit on
stand
the bench.
corrected. I stand corrected because at the beginning of the season, I wanted Marte in the 2 hole to begin with. I thought Lindor and Pete were going to be the 3-4 hole anyways. So I think that if you have Brett Beatty continuing to swing a hot stick, you definitely have him behind JD Martinez. Then you can go right, left, and then you have 2 lefties. That's the problem. That's what the Mets haven't seemed to want to do is to go back-to-back lefties
So hit
with Beatty and
McNeil
McNeil.
9. Damn it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
then
And
McNeil
put
has to be
whoever
your
it is.
9 hitter.
Carlos just said it in the chat.
Boom.
Whoever it
There
may
you
be,
go.
Taylor or
Yeah.
Bader to hit
No,
8.
no,
Facts.
Whoever it may be.
you
Facts.
you
Facts.
brought it up. They need to start setting a lineup and not changing it every game.
Yes.
Hector, you said that during the second game that you think, and I think this is an old philosophy, like a old school type of philosophy. When the Mets were so good in 2022, who was the top 4 hitters? It was Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso. He never moved them unless he gave them days off. And to see 6 games, 6 different lineups. Now I know JD Martinez will probably solidify the lineup a little bit more, and maybe it will trend in a similar direction. But to continue to play matchups, and again, the offense hasn't been good, so I understand starting to change the lineup and trying to figure out combinations that actually work. But changing a lineup every freaking day, it reminds me of the Yankee philosophy that Yankee fans killed Boone for years. And Mendoza's bringing that type of lineup combination, mix and match shit that I can't stand. The lineup was fine in game 1, right? I think it was. I like the lineup. CP, we talked about it in the pregame. I thought the lineup was fine. The problem was, it's a doubleheader, so I'm not worried about game 1 or game 2. But tomorrow, when you face Cincinnati, I want to see a similar lineup that, regardless of the pitcher, I don't worry about lefty righty. You know what? Moving Alvarez away from Pete Alonso is stupid. If that happens, it makes no sense, right? It should be Alonso, Alvarez, Beatty, because those are the 3 guys that have been performing well. And I know Bader got the first hit of the game in game 2. Tyrone Taylor needs to play. I don't want to see Bader starting. Tyrone Taylor needs to play.
At
Tyrone
all.
Taylor
Period.
is crucial to the bottom of the order right now, 8th or 9th, wherever you want to put him. Tyrone Taylor needs to start. I don't give a damn you gave to Bader $10 million. You gave $10 million to a defensive player. Now, I thought Bader was going to be better offensively, to be honest with you, healthy, but he's been an outright disaster. Every ball has not been hit hard. He's swinging for the fences. I know that's his type of game, but Tyrone Taylor has a plan up there. He's not going to walk. He's swinging the bat, and it worked today. But I want to see consistent lineups. I know there's going to be a change here and there. You know, a guy might not be doing well, like McNeil was not playing in the second game, and I don't think it was because Mendoza was trying to give him a break. It's just that he looked terrible in game 1. I want to see consistency in a lineup, and I think you guys would agree that consistency in a lineup kind of make the players know when they come into, walk into the locker room, be like, all right, you know what? Or the clubhouse, hey, I know where I'm going to be in this lineup. Am I playing today? I know you want to give guys, games here, playing here and there. You want to leave guys on the bench for too long, but I want to see consistency in the lineup. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And shout out to Carlos. Let me ask you, I don't know if you guys saw in the comments. He mentioned that maybe Marte is feels better hitting down in the lineup, hitting 6th. But I don't know if we can say that because listen, when he was healthy in 2022, he did well in the 2-hole. When he was out, we talked about
He
how much
made
we missed
Nimmo
him.
better from that 2-hole because he made
Quite
Nimmo,
possible.
and I think it helped Lindor a lot as well because Marte was always on base. Always on base. And Marte is clutch as hell, even though that's why, with CP's point, why you would want him in that 6'5", 6'7" spot, because he is clutch. And if you got those guys on, he is a clutch guy. But I just feel like Marte's speed, Marte's awareness, Marte's plan at the plate works best in the number 2 spot. But again, he hasn't hit over there yet in 6 games. So I don't know what their plan is. I want to see when Martinez comes, which is looking like the Atlanta series, Jesus Christ, let's put more pressure on the guy. I know he's a veteran. But, hey, this is game 13 of the season. Here, we're going to Atlanta for 4. Here you go. And the Knicks are almost making a comeback, huh? 79-76.
Oh,
I'm watching that.
So
I'm watching, but not even paying attention. Let's go.
Yeah, I think Chris froze there. But yeah, Hector, when it comes down to it, I want to see consistency with the lineup because I think that's important because of the fact it makes the players know where they're going to be in the lineup. They know if they're going to be playing.
And how to feed off each other, too. You know what I'm saying? Like you mentioned in the ballpark. But to be fair, I think we've seen some consistency with the top of the lineup, right? Nemo has led off every game. It's been Lindor. It's been Pete. He's messed around a little bit with 4 through the rest of it, And then you throw in there, I don't even want to call them days off because I think the biggest problem with having that consistency that we want in the lineup is that it's not the manager writing the lineup anymore. You know what I'm saying? And you don't have guys 1 through 9 that you're playing every single day for sure, or 1 through 8, you know what I mean? Besides the pitcher. Because whether it be because this guy doesn't hit against lefties or righties, whatever the case may be. It's all about the numbers. It's all about the matchups. It's all about the lanes and all this lingo that I don't even like to use because it makes me sick. It makes me want to vomit. You know what I'm saying? But it's about, this guy throws this type of pitch and it breaks this certain way, and the way your swing path is may be able to make this better, so you're in the lineup today. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if we're ever gonna be able to get that consistency that we want. At the same time, it's also incumbent upon the players. If you have guys, but the way baseball is nowadays, I don't even if they give guys a chance to become everyday players, so that you're able to play no matter who's pitching, lefty, righty, or whatever the case may be. But I don't know if they give guys the time to be able to do that and establish themselves that way, and if guys are even good enough to do that anymore.
Yeah, and Chris is trying to struggling to get back on. He probably will. He's trying to work on his Wi-Fi in a hotel there. But yeah, I agree. So I'm hoping it gets a little bit more consistent. Like you said, the Nimmo's been there. Lindor's been the 2, or and Alonso's been 3 and all that stuff. And they've been working with Alvarez as the cleanup. Beatty was cleanup in game 2. So it's good to see. I think CP is back. Give me a second, guys. All right. So
There we
yeah,
go.
and CP, we were just talking about why you cut out that the line. Hector said it, like the top of the order, like Nimmo's been lead off every game he started. Lindor's been in that 2 spot. Alonso's been in that 3 spot. And then they've been messing around with the cleanup spot. But Alvarez, the last couple of games, been there. And now Beatty actually got a cleanup spot in game 2. So it's seeing that maybe, Mendoza and company, because I don't think, like Hector
Yeah,
said,
exactly.
Mendoza and co is kind of working up a little mixture of a similar lineup where they're starting to trust those 5 guys and running with it. And then 6 through 9 is like, all right, let's see what we can mix up here and match up with Tyron Taylor or Bader or whatever, depending on DJ Stewart or whoever the hell it's going to be.
Yeah,
So
I don't see
I'm
that
telling you,
again.
CP, like when it comes down to it, like what is your concern the most right now after 6 games into the season? We did get our first win. That's great. Going to Cincinnati where the Mets crushed the ball and offensively they should do damage offensively. Maybe that'll get them going into the Atlanta series, as we'll talk about the Reds and the Braves series just now. What is your biggest concern right now, 6 games into the season?
It's gotta be the depth of this team, the bench that is, and who fills in when someone needs a day off. Joey Wendell, as we all know, probably not going to be it. I'm not going to write him off just because of one performance. Obviously, he's a veteran, but I worry about this bench a lot. Especially if you continue to have DJ Stewart out there. I've been a big proponent of, as soon as JD Martinez comes up, bring G-Man Choi up with him, because he's going to be that lefty bat, and he should be that lefty bat over DJ Stewart. That's what I think. You should have those 2 guys come up at the same time, because that'll solve the bottom of your lineup a little bit. When JD Martinez needs a day off. I also agree with you that Tyrone Taylor needs to be playing more than Harrison Bader. Quite simple. I know that you were a big proponent of Harrison Bader's bat maybe taken off this year. I was not so much. I don't believe in Harrison Bader's bat at all. And if he's not playing and if he's not hitting well, I don't care how good of defense he plays. That's a black hole in the lineup. That's an automatic out in the lineup that's already top heavy. So you can't have that. So my concern is the depth of this team, and also how Carlos Mendoza decides to utilize the back end of his bullpen. He needs to utilize the back end of the bullpen correctly. If that means Adam Ottavino is not the 8th inning guy, that means Adam Ottavino is not the 8th inning guy. And I don't care if that was your guy in the 8th inning before the season started, but if he continues to do this, right, I would have as short of a leash as pulling the plug on his 8th inning duties after today, to be honest with you. I really would, because the Mets can't afford to have too many other times like today happened in the 8th inning with Adam Ottavino. So those are really my 2 concerns. I'm not really concerned about the top 5 guys in this lineup. Maybe even top 6, because Brett Beatty's swinging a hot stick, so is Starling Marte. So I think the top 6 is good, and the starting rotation, maybe outside of Luis Severino, and I think he's going to turn it around as well, because I'm a big proponent of Luis Severino. I'm not worried about the starting rotation, even with the injury of Kodai Senga. So I think the depth of this team is definitely going to be one of my main focal points. Like, it turned into, when Mark Canha was still here, obviously familiar face. We saw him in the Detroit series. When Mark Canha was still here, he was supposed to be a 4th outfielder that turned everyday starter last season, and he's not an everyday starter. I don't want the same thing to happen to DJ Stewart, Joey Wendell, etc., Omar Narvaez, etc. That's my biggest concern, because this bench is lacking. Outside of Tyrone Taylor, who should probably be an everyday starter over Harrison Bader in my mind, especially with the results of this early of a season, the bench is one of my biggest concerns, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and Chris, we talked about this a lot on Spring Training Talk Live. We want guys who earned the job and played better than their counterpart in that same position to get the job. Tyrone Taylor is performing better than Bader. Now, defensively, they're both extremely good. They're Gold Glover caliber type of defensive players who can play all 3 outfield positions. So the defense you ain't hampering your defense by putting either one of those guys in the lineup. But right now, Bader looks bad at the plate. Tyrone Taylor looks like a guy with a plan. He has better at bats. And I like the way Tyrone Taylor works his at bats, even though he doesn't walk at all. He's not a guy who likes to walk. He swings the bat, which could be detrimental at times, but it's working right now. And I think you got to play that hot hand. And I think Mendoza is starting to realize that with Tyrone Taylor. Tomorrow, I want to see Tyrone Taylor in the lineup, regardless of the numbers. I don't care if Harrison Bader is batting 1,000 against the starter for Cincinnati. I don't give a shit. Tyrone Taylor tomorrow should be in the lineup. So the Reds preview. We got Quintana, we got Severino, and now Manaea is getting pushed up as the number 3 starter because of the McGill injury. Hector, I'm going to start with you here. This is a big series for the Mets. They're 1-5, 7-game road trip, Cincinnati and Atlanta. They need to win this series. Now, I don't know, as Met fans right now, we're confident in getting greedy here and trying to sweep. And the Knicks tied it in the third. Good. But what I'm worried about is that now. Let me just make you get through with it, Hector. When it comes to the Red Series right here, we got all 3 guys that are at the top of the rotation: Quintana, Severino, Manaea in the 3 games in Cincinnati. Who knows with weather? We might have rain delays, doubleheaders once again. What do you want to see from this Mets team going into the Red Series, knowing that they've been successful offensively in years past in Cincinnati? Alonso has, I think, his best numbers in his career has been in Cincinnati. I need the offense, in my opinion, to just not worry what happens with the pitcher. I need the offense to win these games in Cincinnati. What do you think, Hector?
No, I agree with you. I mean, and almost like even taking it back a little bit to what you guys were touching on before, and you asked CP what he's been most disappointed with or what he's most worried about. The concern, I forget exactly the wording. Um, but for me is that we talked about it. You touched on it a little bit. It's still the core. It's still the core of this team. I need to see the core. See, we can talk about the 7 through 9 and how that looks and all of that good stuff and who's gonna step up and who should be playing center field and whether DJ Stewart should be here and all. But at the end of the day, these guys are role players.
Yep.
And are they the best role players? I don't know. But sometimes when your main guys are also not getting the job done, now you're asking your role players to step up and be stars or be more than what they are when they just need to fill a role, you know? So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking for this core, Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, where the hell are you? Jeff McNeil, you're driving me crazy. Like, let's join the party. Let's see what's gonna. And you touched on it. Cincinnati, we know is a hitter's ballpark, so there should be opportunity for these guys to be able to get fat, to get some balls to drop in and maybe hit some balls out of the ballpark. I'm not sure what the weather's gonna. Well, I hear that the weather's gonna be bad out there, so hopefully we even get the games in. But for me, guys, it's all about the core. No matter what happens, this whole year is about the core. I think it's the same thing for this front office. It's about the core to see whether this core is worth moving forward with because yes, I and maybe I'm getting a little bit too far ahead of myself here. I understand that David Stern's coming in as a new guy in charge, has to evaluate from within and see what he has. But you know what you got. You know these names, and if you felt real good about them, you may have taken a different approach to this offseason, and you did it for a reason. So, does he have some of the doubts that maybe some of the fan base has as far as the score? Let's
Oh yeah,
go. It's
I
time to
agree.
start showing up, and it's time to show it. Like it's time to start getting it done. I don't want to hear about these slow starts and all of this nonsense. It's time to play ball now.
Yeah, and you know what? Nimmo and Lindor in particular need to get going. Nimmo's batting under 100. Nimmo striking out a ton. We were talking about this, Hector. Striking out a ton.
Yes.
CP, what is your concern? What do you want to see in that Red Series? What do you think is the, I would say, X factor in this Red Series that you think can get this Mets team over the top, win a series at the very least, uh, getting out of Cincinnati?
It's those 2 guys that you just named, and I'd mentioned Francisco Lindor specifically. We know he's a second half type of hitter. in order to have a true MVP caliber type season, right? We're talking about him being a top 3 shortstop in the league. Well, he'd be undisputed number 1 if he started off hot, and he never seems to do that, especially now
Not
when
even
he's been
hot,
with the New York
CP.
Mets.
Just regular, man. You don't even got to be on fire, right? Just regular. Listen,
Facts.
maybe 2 more hits. I'm not even gonna say 3. 2 more hits that he's gotten in these first 6 games could have been the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does that mean you were on fire? Does that mean you were a hero? No. It just means get involved. But
I
go ahead,
agree.
brother.
No, I agree with you. And he's been striking out in key situations. And Brandon Nimmo also. I mean, Brandon Nimmo has been drawing the walks. He's been getting on base. So he's at least been doing that. But also, Brandon Nimmo really hasn't been making that contact that we're so accustomed to seeing Brandon Nimmo do. He's been striking out a ton, like you said, Rob, as well. So those two guys in an offensive ballpark, a hitter's ballpark, you're going to need to have those guys wake up. You got your pitchers that you want up there on the mound, especially with Kodai Senga injured. You got them going. You got Quintana, the veteran. You got Severino, who's looking for a bounce back season, and Manaya, who went out there in the first start and lit it up, six innings pitched and 8 strikeouts. You got the guys you want on the mound, and it's a hitter's ballpark, so you know the Reds are going to score runs. They're an up and coming team. They surprised people last season. These guys, these veteran bats, need to step up. There's no more 2 for 45 or whatever Lindor and Nimmo are combined together. That needs to change, and we can't wait until May for that to change. I'm sorry. We can't wait for Lindor to come around in June and for him to be that second half hitter. This team needs him. He is a MVP caliber player in the league, right? Especially in the second half, but he's an MVP caliber type player for this team. And he needs to show that in April when the games matter, because the games matter now. This is not spring training anymore. We can talk about slow starts all you want. We cannot afford a slow start because we've already started slow. You need to
Yeah.
win this series because
Yep.
this Brave series is going to be absolutely brutal if you come out of Cincinnati with 0 or 1 wins. Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo, 1-2 in the lineup. You need to be the table setters, at least at the very minimum. Just get on base for Alonso and Alvarez and Beta to do their thing. At the minimum.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not even just important to win the series because we need to win. We're 1-5, but we have. I think it's been confirmed that Julio Teheran is pitching on Monday, the first game in Atlanta.
Oh,
That's a tough way. That is a tough way to start a series with a guy you just signed who probably didn't really pitch at all. He pitched in spring a little
Hopefully
bit.
we get that some of that former facing his former team magic or whatever the hell.
Well, that's
I
what I'm
don't know.
hoping for. Like I said, and look, this road trip, and I think it's going to be good for the Mets to get on the road, even though they did win. Because I think I said it with you and Miguel. That was my coworker that was at the game with me. We were talking about it, like they need to
Shout out to Miguel.
maybe
That's
get.
a funny dude.
Yep, yeah, he is. Maybe the Mets need to get away from home and just get on the road, have a bonding experience, or I don't know, sing kumbaya or whatever to get going and just get away from the pressure of New York and the homestand and just get out of it and go into Great American Ballpark. That is a bandbox where the offense should get going even if you're struggling, but it's April, the weather sucks, the ball might not be flying out of the ballpark like it would be in July. So the whole fact of the matter is the Mets need to win this series because we know, like CP said, going into Atlanta, they are looking for blood. They want to bury us. They want to bury us 6 feet. They want to pee in our grave and they want to spit in our grave and then go about their business. They want to bury us in April. There's no doubt about that. If the Mets find a way in these 7-game road trip, go 4-3. I think we would be okay with that, right, guys?
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
right. And we would be coming back home. I think we
So
played
what is it? Four against Atlanta or 4 against Cincinnati?
four
Four against
against
Atlanta.
Atlanta. Yeah, four against no 4 against Cincinnati? No, God no. It has to be 4 against Atlanta. You know why? Because MLB fucking hates us. Like, seriously, guys. Seriously. So let's fit we'll get into the Brave series later on down the road for other shows. But quickly on the remaining X factor part that I want to get into.
Hey, Rob, real quick.
Go. What's up?
One thing that I've completely forgot that we glossed over that I think is the biggest bunch of BS that I saw today, obviously outside of the Mets killing themselves, their own selves, is that umpire interference in game 2 where they called back Nimmo when the catcher hit the
Yeah,
umpire by accident. The Mets get penalized for that. I don't know why that just popped into my head. It was a random thought. Let's
well,
continue to X factors, but I just want to say that it's bogus.
Yeah, I think it was. I think they called it a dead ball, right? Like a do over, because the count
Yeah,
didn't change.
they sent Nimmo back to first base. Yeah,
Yeah, so okay,
because
because
he stole
I know.
second successfully, and then he went to third base on
Yeah, on the
the
bad
pass
throw.
ball or whatever to
Yeah.
out.
Is that when that happened? I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, so
How did
apparently,
I miss that?
the Brewers were going to challenge that. We're supposed to. They were challenging that, right?
No,
Or when
this is in game 2. This is in game 2
Yeah,
today
yeah,
against
yeah.
the
I
Tigers.
remember that situation. I didn't even realize that he was sent back to first.
I know
Wow.
he got sent back to first, but shoot, there were so
So
many
he
things that happened.
stole second successfully and he advanced to third on the wild throw by the catcher, but they sent
Right.
him back to first because Pete
Right.
Alonso on the strikeout, he didn't even interfere. It was the catcher who went back on his throw. His elbow hit the umpire. So by virtue, they called it umpire interference, and the Mets were penalized
Yeah,
because of that.
see, I don't understand that because isn't the
BS.
umpire isn't the umpire a part of the play
That's what I
unless
think.
if it's a wild pitch and it hits the umpire, it's not a dead ball. It's
Yep.
not
Yep.
umpire interference. So I don't understand. This is not a situation where the batter's swinging and hits the catcher's mitt and this catcher's interference. The umpire is part of the play. You don't stop the game because a wild pitch hits the umpire. Everybody's got his no, you can't move the base, can't move. So I don't understand that. Maybe it is a rule and we don't see it enough to
Well,
understand
no,
it.
I think I've seen it before. I don't know what the heck I was doing. I just missed that whole thing at the game. It might
We
have been
might be
when
screaming at somebody.
I don't know. But I have seen it before where the catcher the bumps into the umpire or whatever, and they call it interference. So
Yeah, that is.
I mean, listen, just the Mets luck, right? And if they would have lost the game, it would have been like,
Exactly.
that's just how it goes for us. But
Yeah.
thankfully, now we can just talk about it. We can wonder what the heck it means, what it all happens, but it doesn't even really matter because it's not a factor in the game.
Yeah, we definitely can take a deep breath there. We got that first wind out of our system. We can because it was starting to get pressurized. Like the makeshift retractable roof was going to get blown off from all the pressure inside City Field with the 376 fans that were at City Field freezing their asses off, cheering when the sun came out. That's how bad it was at City Field today.
Right.
But all right, guys. Hector, I'm going to finish up with you here. X factor for this road trip. Who is it? And who do you think is going to be the biggest factor going into this road trip? If the Mets come out successful out of this road trip, whatever it is, 4 out of 3, 5 out of 2, 6 out of 1, 7-0. God forbid. I mean, if that happens, World Series, here we come. But what X factor do you want? If it could be a player, it can be a situation. What do you think the X factor is going to be on this road trip?
Honestly, guys, and I know we've been focusing a lot on the offense and the core, and I think that's always the X factor, especially the core. But when we talk about going to Great American Ballpark, when we talk about going to go face the Braves, the X factor is the pitching, guys. The
Okay,
X factor is the
that's a good
pitching.
one.
I want to see if they can live up to what they've done so far. If you factor in spring training, if you factor in the first few games, because there's been some little bit rough patches, mostly by Tonkin. Let's be honest, mostly by he's giving up most of our damn runs. That guy, but
He was
for
in
the
a bad
most part, we
spot, though. That's not bad situations 2 times though. He was the last
no,
one.
yeah, it is, it is,
He
it
was the
is.
last one out of the pen, so it was tough. But yeah,
No,
Hector.
it is. But I think that's the X factor for me. Can this
Okay.
pitching continue? Can Severino now bounce back a little bit from what wasn't a horrible start, a play here, play there that could have worked out better? Can Manaya build upon a great start by Manaya? Can he build upon it? can the bullpen do the job when they're called upon? Not if they're called upon, because they will be called upon. And who's gonna step up and get that big Acuna out? You know what I'm saying? Who's gonna step up and get on what's like the kid's name from Cincinnati out when we need it? So to me, I guess it should be the hitting and it should be the core, but because of what we're facing, can the pitching still be able to hold it down? Because at the end of the day, the I guess you could be the Yankees again, reference them guys, and just bash your way to wins. But pitching was gonna carry us to victories more often than not.
Yeah, so I know somebody talked about Ricardo brought up Ottavino. Tell him that the plane's leaving from JFK, so the Mets can take off LaGuardia and just leave him in New York. So and I actually think Ottavino would number wise, I still think he still can be decent for this team. Not in the eighth inning, but
No,
anywhere but the eighth inning. But we'll see how that goes. But Chris, your X factor going into this road trip, player, team, whatever.
Like I li- I like Ricardo saying Severino. I think he needs to have a big bounce back type outing, especially like I
yes,
said in the hitter's ballpark. I think he's going to be one of the X
yeah,
factors. Like Hector said in general, the pitching, especially in pitcher's ballpark, all of them, Quintana and Severino and Minaya, obviously looking to build on that good first start. But I think offensively, I don't know what we're going to get from Lindor, but for me, it's Nimmo being that leadoff guy and getting back to what we need Brandon Nimmo to do. I think that
yes,
Brandon Nimmo offensively is my biggest X factor through this road trip, the 7-game road trip offensively. And then I'm going to just say Severino, just point him out because he did give up 12 hits in that short stint there in the Saturday ball game against the Brewers. So I'm going to have both those guys as my X factors. Quite simple. Listen, we need to see more offensively. If I had to say anything, that's it. More offense, period. The pitching, I get it. It's been all over the place. The bullpen has sort of held up their end of the bargain, minus Tonkin and Adam Ottavino when they've been called upon. We need more offense. We need more than just 3 runs. We need more than just 2 runs. Let's put up 6, 7, 8 runs, like we've
yes.
been saying, Rob. Let's just put up a blank checkup on them on the scoreboard. So offense needs to show up.
Yeah, I mean the pitching kept us in every game so far. I mean the Mets had a chance to win every game of the season so far, the first 6 games. So I was gonna say Severino
You know
because
what? But I what CP just
yeah,
touched
yeah,
on, being that we're the road team. How about we get up 3-0 in a couple of these first innings and
yeah,
give the pitchers some breathing room to go out there and work their magic? I'm with you on that, CP. Hell yeah.
yeah, absolutely. That's a great point by CP and Hector bringing that up again. Absolutely, yeah. That was why the Mets were so good in 2022. They used to, get pitches, started pitching out early and score runs very early in the game. Like they were one of the best teams in the first inning scoring runs in 2022. They need to get back to that, and hopefully they do. But
Oh
I
my
was gonna,
gosh, guys! I just seen something. Apple
oh,
TV tomorrow.
who?
Apple TV. The game is on Apple
Oh
TV
shit,
tomorrow.
really?
Ugh.
Oh yeah, it's the Friday game of the week. Oh,
I
okay.
saw that earlier and I was like, that's bad news, man. That sucks.
All right, so let's just fly to Cincinnati. We'll just go to the game.
Sorry,
Then
man.
we'll
Yeah,
get
I'm
Apple
sorry,
TV.
guys. I
It's all right.
literally just
It's
know,
all
like, oh my god.
right. All right. So I was gonna say Severino as well because he's coming off a bad start at home, and he's going to a hitter's ballpark in Cincinnati. That scares me a little bit. We know Severino drives on confidence. His fastball velocity was down in his first start, which is kind of weird considering the fact that you would think he would be really amped up and overthrowing, but he was a couple of miles an hour down from what he was in spring training. If he can consistently be 97, 98 instead of that 95, 96, it might not sound like a big difference, but it was clearly a difference against the Brewers. If he can get that 97, 98 back he had in spring, I think that extra tick or two on the fastball might miss a few more bats. And I think that would help him. But it's all about confidence for Severino. And like Hector just said, the bats got to score early. Let's give the pitchers leads. We finally got a lead in the first game. We ended up blowing that lead. But you saw how it looked. It just felt like the Mets were going to win that entire game. Gave the pitchers a little bit more breathing room, which they did not have any of these games except for game one of the doubleheader today. So remember, guys, it's a long season. everybody thought the season was over, 0-5, 0-4, going into the doubleheader. Everybody was talking about trading Pete. Edwin Diaz came up in a trade. Me and Hector were talking about Edwin Diaz.
We traded everybody.
In the trade. Everybody's up for grabs.
We traded each other.
Yeah, I'm saying. I mean, Hector. I mean, go to the Bronx now, man. Put on that pinstripe, baby. Let's go. People are talking about Edwin Diaz getting traded to the Yankees on WFAN. Like,
oh my God.
Listen,
please.
Look, it was already bad. The Mets started 0-4, now 0-5, and the Yankees were performing well. So we have to deal with that as we share a city. And their opening day is tomorrow. So it's going to be wall to wall on WFAN with Yankee nonsense, which I hope Toronto just beats the shit out of Stroman tomorrow. Please, sorry. I'm sorry. I had it out with coworkers, Yankee fans and stuff. But final words for you guys. And Chris, we're going to finish it up with you with your final words. Obviously, about your channel, what's been going on, and say your final thoughts, buddy.
You know what? Honestly, I don't have much to say. Let's go Mets. I'm glad they got a win. Honestly, I might toss up a little bit of a post game here for the Knicks game. I see they're up, so maybe tune into that on the channel. But nonetheless, let's go Knicks. Let's go Mets. One win. We build upon that.
Yes.
On to tomorrow. That's it. That's my final word. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that thumbs up.
Yes, absolutely. Hector, welcome to the roundtable. Hopefully this goes on for a long time. What is your final thoughts? And whatever you're going to be doing on next, let people know.
No, like CP said, I don't want to add too much. I mean, I guess my final thought is that, man, thank you for having me. Thank both of you for having me. Listen, I don't know what I do, right? I'm a fan that likes to talk sports, that likes to express myself, that likes to engage. I flirted with doing a YouTube channel like you guys do. I flirted with doing podcasts. I flirted with this. I flirted with that. For now, I do my videos on X. I put them out there. I call them blunt recap after the games. I do morning rants. I do whatever the hell I feel like it rant. You know what I'm saying? But it's usually on the Mets, sometimes on the Knicks. I love my New York teams, man. I love talking to the people. But my thought is thank you. And like you said, hopefully we can continue to do this. Hopefully we get a lot more. Hopefully we get a lot of happy times doing this, because I don't want to come in here and talk about trades and talk about this, and we're going to be able to get Juan Soto, none of that stuff. But, man, let's go Knicks. Let's finish this game. Let's go Mets. And thank you, guys, man. Appreciate
Absolutely, guys. And you know what? It almost was going to be a very negative stream if the Mets would have lost that 2 doubleheaders. But we got lucky. We're smiling a little bit more. So, once again, guys, thank you for tuning in to the first Mets Roundtable of 2024. A little bit of a new background, new co-host with Hector joining us. Hayden will hopefully be with us next week when the Mets get into that road trip, middle of the
after we come back of a 5-2 road trip, baby.
Woo! There we go. That's confident. All right, guys. So with that said, Mets Roundtable in the books. Let's go Mets. Mets are heading to Cincinnati. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great night. Let's go Mets. We'll see you next time, guys. Have a good night, guys.
LFGM.